New on CuriosityStream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that, let's put it online and see what happens stage.
And the site is live.
That we opened a store and need a fast checkout stage.
Thanks. You're all set.
That count it up and ship it around the globe stage.
This one's going to Thailand.
And that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/profit23.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Music fact of the day before we jump right in. In 1985, Michael Jackson bought the publishing rights to most Beatles songs for $47.5 million, and he used money from the profits of his album Thriller. This ended his friendship with Paul McCartney, who felt betrayed by Jackson for doing that. Interesting. I knew he owned the catalog. I just didn't know that it ended their friendship. All right, so we are going to jump right in. Remember, we were talking about last episode. We are going to get into Ian and his ex-wife Natalie's deal, where obviously his ex-wife and mom are concerned after talking to Brandon. So this picture on the screen is an interview that Ian and Melaniece gave in May of 2020. This was just a month before the kids' bodies were found. This was with 12news.com. And I will link that in the description if you want to watch the whole interview. I'm actually going to go back and watch the whole thing and then do a full episode on things. So Ian, they gave this, and he explained what happened leading up to him cooperating with the FBI and wearing a wire. He said when he divorced his wife, Natalie, she cut off all communication with his side of the family. But in December of 2019, his mom called him and said she just talked to Natalie. And according to Natalie, Melaniece, Lori, and Chad are in a cult. They murdered someone back in July, and they tried to kill Brandon. So Ian said he reaches out to his ex-wife asking where she heard this. And she said Brandon and one of his business partners. He said after seeing Chad and Lori disappear and knowing they're looking for JJ, he did not mention Tylee, which kind of bothers me. But he got worried and wanted to get this behind him as quickly as possible. So he goes with Natalie and talks to the FBI and Rexburg police and tells them what he knows. So he said at the time, Melaniece had been sharing her fears with him and her own thinking of what was going on. So he took that and ran with it, and he said it turned into a big mess for him. Now, remember, this is just a couple of weeks, if that. I don't even think it's that, after they're married. So the FBI asked if he could record some calls between Melaniece and maybe Chad and Lori, hoping that Chad and Lori would slip up and tell where the kids were. And then, game over. At least at the time they thought it would be game over, but they were investigating Charles and Tammy's murder, so it would not have been game over should the kids have been okay. He said it didn't happen that way, and nothing was ever revealed where JJ and Tylee were. Nothing ever said about any of it. So when asked if any red flags went up, he said he thought Melaniece was being taken advantage of, but he sat back and watched. He said he didn't see anything, so he knew Melaniece was fine and she was a good person. He later says he realizes things aren't the way they've been portrayed to him, and he means by the police. He does not mean by Chad and Lori and Melaniece. So December 8th. So remember, they got married November 31st, 31st. So you're looking at a week, a little more than a week after the marriage, where this is what he texts his ex-wife, Natalie. Don't respond. I need you to encourage Brandon to keep information he gets on the down low until I can get this sorted out. I want to help, but it will be tough if everyone starts figuring out what I'm learning. She didn't know beforehand what was going to happen. They made the attempt, failed, and told her about it after the fact. I understand that he, meaning Brandon, doesn't want the kids around her because of all this. But I believe if she can see them, it will put a huge dent in her trust with her uncles. And that's plural, and I'm assuming Alex and Chad. She's scared and has been told her 2 middle children are dead. She has a family court date on December 11th, and I'm trying to get her to go. I don't know if I can convince her to go on Wednesday. I'm trying, but she, quote, got an answer, end quote, last night from God himself. Her uncles have her so wrapped up. They're telling her she needs to move to Missouri. That's not going to happen because I'm not going to leave Rexburg. They think it has something to do with jurisdiction, which is interesting. Are we talking about like jurisdiction because of the crimes they committed? Dumbest thing ever. Don't respond. Just wanted to update you earlier because I had a quick second to call. Stay safe. So this document that we're about to get into allegedly came from Ian's computer and was actually used in Brandon and Melaniece's custody battle. Ian tries to piece together what he can about this group's beliefs and other events. So multiple probations. There are a minimum of 9 mortal lives to become exalted, but more to become gods. After 2 mortal lives, you can choose to sign a light contract or dark contract. Choosing light or dark isn't permanent. You can choose not to be reborn if you're satisfied with your progress. The veil grows thinner every time you're reborn. Multiple sealings possible, but males can choose one true spouse or have many. And the translation, a translated being cannot die, cannot reproduce, which is curious because Lori and Zelima were super happy they were starting to get their minstrels back. They do not need sleep or food, do not feel the sorrow of the world. Injury is possible, but healing is accelerated and it's never fatal. Translation is done in multiple phases and tests, usually lasting 3 days, but healing is Upon completing the last phase, the Lord appears to the translated. So physical can be any physical ailment from sexual desire to disease to severe fatigue. Emotional, any emotional or mental ailment. Spiritual, a great test of faith, a time of darkness and doubt. Sexual, possible new phase discovered as husband and wife become more united sexually, possibly increasing vibration. Sorry, y'all. I literally have the sense of humor of a 15-year-old boy. There are 50 dark translated humans, and unfortunately, Detective Hope and Hermosillo have been identified as such. So, work under the direction of Satan, Lucifer, and Cain. Then it says stats, vibration, an indication of one's spiritual strength, and above a certain level, and he has in parentheses 1,000 with a question mark, garments are no longer necessary. Higher vibrations can help to thin the veil a little. Libido 1 through 100 is an indication of a sex drive. The trust level, we know that. We've seen those scales that Chad made for Lori, an indication of how much someone can be trusted. Then you have a light-dark percentage, an indication of how much light and darkness dwell in one's body. And we are all too familiar with that. So zombies, human bodies that have had their original spirits forced from them and have been possessed by either a demon, original third of the heavenly host who followed Lucifer. A disembodied spirit is once living human spirits who have chosen not to be reborn into another probation. Or a worm/slug, which is a creature controlled by Lucifer that enters the body to control the host. And I swear, y'all, I saw some terrible horror movie in the 80s about that, I think. Spirits can be pushed from their bodies during traumatic events or deadly injury. Spirits pushed out are trapped in limbo as the body they're tied to is still living but cannot be occupied by them anymore. Spirits trapped in limbo cannot progress to a new mortal life and cannot re-enter their existing body. The only way to move forward is to await the death of their current possessed body. This is an illegal action against heavenly law performed by the possessor. So being able to teleport when translated beings are needed, they may, with the Lord's permission, teleport to the necessary location to perform their assigned duties. Dark and light portals are physical objects all around us that have ties to the spiritual world and can open portals or gateways to both light and darkness, through which light and dark entities may pass. It's so Harry Potter. You remember they have the port keys where like you put your hand on it, boom, you get put somewhere else. I'm telling you, man, Chad was a Potterhead. And then he just twisted it. Like, I can't even watch it without thinking about Chad, y'all. All right, Church of the Firstborn and the 144,000. The Church of the Firstborn is a higher organization in God's church in its truest form on earth. The mysteries of God are revealed to those who have become part of it. Terrestrial blessings and locations begin to be revealed to members. Doctrines added to but do not replace those of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Prophet of the Mormon Church provides over the general congregation, while others are specifically to run the Church of the Firstborn. There are multiple branches throughout the world, and it says the 144,000 are called to bring to pass all signs of the second coming of Christ. So there are multiple groups specializing in different powers and activities, and it says Lori and Chad's group specializes in healing and music. So I'm wondering, when Melanie Gibb was over the weekend JJ was murdered and said they were doing their music thing, were they like doing Smule where they sing like Just Can't Get Enough and Cool Rider? Or are they doing some kind of, some kind of really weird... sorry, my Grammy accidentally FaceTimed me. Sorry for that little dink. She does that a lot. I tell you guys, she does weird things with her phone. So the patriarchal order of the Holy Melchizedek priesthood. Did I get that right, y'all? Okay. A higher priesthood bestowed to Chad by Peter, James, and John. Oh, Lord have mercy, y'all. Priesthood keys and authority bestowed on women. Women may perform all the same blessings and ordinances as men. The dark church and priesthood, Satan is God's exact opposite. Lucifer has a body. He was once an apostle and he fell. Cain was the first dark being to be translated in this creation and walks the earth with 50 dark translated beings to prevent or delay the Lord's second coming. Spiritual gifts and powers, people can manipulate the elements to do the Lord's will and bring to pass signs of his second coming. Cue Zulema and her earthquakes. If you can imagine it, it's real. That's what they say. Every fantastic idea is a reality somewhere. Magic, wizards, sorcerers, witches, etc. Spells and curses in Harry Potter are real and require great focused will to use. Dude, I can see Chad's backyard. Luminous. I mean, look, guys, if Harry Potter spells were real, I would not be sitting here right now. Just saying. I'd be flying all over the place or like getting my wand and doing crazy stuff. Supernatural creatures. There are dragons, giants, fairies, things like that. Usually it's Julie Rowe bringing them the dragons through text messages. Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but sometimes, guys, you got to with this stuff. Spiritual weapons, dark and light weapons, weapons that cannot be perceived by celestial beings that injure and scar the spirit. There are cords, which are ties to people and things, both light and dark, that influence us. Spiritual healing, malachite solution, and balm. Remember, Lori and Chad's wedding bands were malachite. Malachite is said to have healing properties. It's administered by calling on it in a blessing. So he sums things up in his own words here. All this was kind of in like a list format. When Melaniece began sharing all of these things with me, I tried to keep an open mind. I'd only met her 4 days previous, but felt very comfortable around her. Okay, how are you going to feel comfortable around her when she's telling you can teleport and like Harry Potter spells? Oh, I believe there's more to the gospel than what I've seen so far, but I never thought it would sound like this. The ideas seemed harmless at first, and she sounded pretty certain of some of them. She talked about how she had learned some of these things in the temple and others from Chad and Lori. Upon first meeting Chad and Lori, I didn't get a bad impression of them, but they did seem different. I didn't think anything of that, as I feel that's a fairly normal feeling to experience. I didn't give them much thought, as they said they were planning on taking off and that I'd be taking the reins concerning care of Melaniece. That's interesting. As it, clearly they thought she needed a protector, and here you go. They said they'd be going to Hawaii and invited me to come visit sometime. Later, Melaniece explained porting, and they could travel there by that method. Let's just forget the stubs we've seen in the document dump for all these plane tickets. At the first time hearing all of these new beliefs was a jolt. I was looking for someone spiritual, but this was a leap beyond that into concerning territory. I had fears and doubts, but I trusted Melaniece and wanted to give it a fair chance. So I continued to listen and ask questions and hope it would click for me. It never did. There were fun and exciting ideas, but it felt like many of them were ripped straight out of a Dungeons and Dragons manual. Exactly, Ian. 100%. Between the stats, accounts of dark and light weapons, the words spoken in blessings, it sounded like someone had created a tabletop role-playing game based on the Bible. While living something like that appealed to me, I couldn't find anything to confirm it as I prayed and asked. I figured anyone called to something like this would struggle, but how else would they be made aware of things like this? I continued to try to keep an open mind and proceed with caution. I've never heard of anybody with such an open mind until Ian and this document. Melaniece began to share what she feared for the lives of her two children based on a dream she had where they came to her. They brought her tidings of great joy. Her daughter thanked her for allowing her the freedom to use her agency until the end. This concerned me and made my heart ache for her. I felt there was no way anything could have happened without people finding out. We married faster than any sane couple would, but we both felt it was right. On our wedding night, she began to elaborate on the ideas she shared earlier about her children coming to her. She explained zombies and her fears about what Chad and Lori stated concerning the original spirits being caught in limbo until the body's death. She stated that Brandon had been possessed by a demon or another dark entity sometime after June of this year. She was told either through revelation or by Chad that something would happen to him and something needed to happen to him in order for his spirit to progress and for the Lord's plan to continue. She didn't take well to the idea of her husband dying as part of the Lord's plan, but didn't think action would be taken by anyone. She still loves Brandon and would never wish any ill on him. It just sounded to her like it would be something that happened on its own when it was his time. I don't understand why, like, the minute Melaniece fell asleep on their wedding night in Vegas, that Ian did not, run. Oh, man. This is where things started becoming concerning to me. She shared the idea that Chad and Lori could have directed Al to take a shot at Brandon. It wasn't anything she was sure about. The concern began when she was called into the Gilbert police station and asked about Chad, Lori, and Alex after the attempt on Brandon's life. She later was given the impression that the bullet needed to move 5 inches so as to not hit Brandon, which is true. He came inches from being murdered. Initially, to me, it sounded like this was told to her by Chad. The discussion moved to Chad and Lori's missing children. At the time, only JJ was counted as missing, and the Rexburg PD had conducted raids on Melaniece's apartment along with Al's. Melaniece had been told by Chad and Lori that their children had been possessed and had become zombies. She shared concerns that she's been told Brandon needed to die, and that may indicate that Tylee and JJ needed to die as well. She told me she was worried that Al may have had to take care of the kids. She explained that Al had great faith and never wavered in his trust in the Lord. No task would be too difficult or great for him. When I asked for clarification, she restated her concern verbatim. At that point, I became severely worried, but told myself there's no way I just married into a situation so sinister. I spent the next 2 days trying to justify my actions and reassure myself that everything was fine, but I couldn't get to that point. My ex-wife, Natalie, had been asking for Melaniece's name so she can check her out on social media and get an idea of who she is. Melaniece had been adamant that I not share her full name with anyone for fear that Brandon may locate and harass her. I couldn't justify that and eventually gave Natalie Melaniece's full name. On Tuesday, December 2nd, I got a call from my mother. She'd just gotten off the phone with Natalie. We went through that where they talked about they haven't spoken in 8 months. And the call was a video call from Natalie. Natalie was terrified. She had managed to reach Brandon through his business and heard his side of things. She had been told Melaniece was in a cult and tried to have him killed. While I didn't and still don't believe she had anything to do with his attempted murder, I was still terrified at the possibility. The next morning on the way to work, Natalie called and we were discussing how to handle this in order to keep our kids safe. She told me she'd be going in to meet with the police. I told her I'd go along and lay out everything I understood. I saw two possibilities. The first was that Melaniece isn't who I thought she was, and I keep myself and my family out of a dangerous situation. The second was that Melaniece has been taken advantage of, and I'm going to get her out of a messy situation and healed. When meeting with the police, I intended to share things as I understood. Detectives Hope and Hermosillo were present along with an FBI agent named Ricky. I've since shared all of my concerns with Melaniece and have gotten clarification on some of them. What I shared with the police were the ideas that Chad, Lori, and Alex may have planned shooting at Brandon, and that Tylee and JJ may be in serious danger if Melaniece's fears have any validity. If shooting at Brandon was indeed based on the idea he was not longer actually Brandon and needed to die as part of the Lord's plan, then the kids' lives could be forfeit based on the idea they're not really Tylee and JJ anymore. I shared that Melaniece had concerns about them participating in the shooting and was against anyone trying to hurt him. She couldn't see them doing these things, but she also knew they would follow the Lord's will as they saw it. I shared ideas about earthquakes being prepared in Salt Lake City and that it was believed there would be a time when the quakes hit that many possessions would occur there due to the high number of injured there would be. Such a thing would be a huge threat to God's plan and would need to be dealt with directly. Al and Zulema had stayed in Vegas and were preparing earthquakes at the time I spoke with police. I shared concerns for the safety of my kids and Natalie. I offered to help in any way I can, and then I allowed them to pull data from my phone. I met with them again the following afternoon and restated what I knew for a few other detectives, Lieutenant Ball and another FBI agent named Travis. They shared some mild concern about me potentially spying for Chad and Lori. I explained I was there because I was concerned primarily for the safety of my kids and that I wanted to get Melaniece out of this if possible. They gave me a recording device that looked like a thumb drive on a keychain. My plan was to record anything I thought that could help locate Tylee and JJ, locate Chad and Lori, and understand what happened when Brandon was shot at. If I thought Chad and Lori were going to be calling, I'd turn on the recorder and just let it run until they hung up. I didn't feel that anything substantial was recorded as Chad and Lori never talked about the kids or their current location. Most of the conversations consisted of everyone commiserating about the current circumstances, discussing religious ideas and just catching up. In addition to the recordings, I would talk with Ricky and he'd let me know about things that may come up in conversation. He was never specific, but would give me enough information for me to know when it came up. These tips turned into Tammy's body being exhumed and Al's passing. On December 19th, Detective Hermosillo contacted me and told me they had another warrant for Al's apartment next door. He asked if I'd give them the code to the garage so they would not have to break the door in. I shared the code. I didn't see any reason not to. They went in with a forensics team and looked for any evidence of JJ having been there. Melaniece saw them there and spent the afternoon at my apartment. That night, I went to the apartment and looked around to see what they had been doing or if they had taken anything. I also wanted to see the warrants to understand what they'd been looking for. After looking around, I went to see Melaniece at my apartment. I finally broke down and told her that I'd spoken with the police and that I don't believe any of this. I didn't know how she would react, but I couldn't hang on to the stress anymore. Of course, she was hurt, feeling betrayed, but she reassured me that she loved me and she understands why I did it. At that time, I didn't share that I'd been recording anything. I wasn't sure if we'd hear from Chad or Lori again. Over the following week, we had discussions on our situations and I came to understand things a little better. She was legitimately afraid of the ideas I'd shared with the police and FBI, but they weren't anything she had proof of. As I've spoken with her and dug into the details, I've come to believe she truly doesn't know anything about who shot at Brandon or where the kids have gone. She only has what-if scenarios that she has shared. I'm worried that I jumped the gun and have sent authorities on yet another wild goose chase, along with prompting them to light up the national media with pieces of what I share. I'm worried that that was twice. My intent was to protect my family and help solve the case of the kids' disappearance, not smear anyone in the public eye. I certainly didn't want to give Brandon any ammo to hurt Melaniece any more than he already has. I still have my doubts. Primarily, why not turn to the police first instead of disappearing if you claim your life is in danger? Why leave your innocent niece here to clean up the mess and encourage her not to cooperate with authorities? Why encourage her not to fight for her kids? Her ex-husband now has temporary sole custody as a result. Why not simply provide proof that the kids are okay and put an end to this insanity? Isn't it odd that the two detectives assigned to your case happen to be two of the Kane's Dark 50? Everyone trying to do their job and save these kids are either evil or deceived. Your kids are missing and it doesn't come up once during a handful of lengthy conversations. There are so many more that I have. I don't ever want to have anything to do with those two after this. Melaniece has been put through the ringer because of their paranoia and now is in the hot seat because I went to the police and tried to help. I know she's done nothing wrong and I want her free from this. I will no longer openly cooperate with the police or the FBI, but I will through a lawyer. My final straw was when I received a call on Friday from Ricky where he threatened charges of lying to a federal office and or being an accessory in the disappearance of Tylee and JJ because Melaniece couldn't clearly answer questions about the religious aspects of the investigation. After I shared my doubts with her, her world shattered. She couldn't answer those questions because she doesn't know what she believes about those things anymore. There was so much information dumped on her by Chad and Lori that she can't remember what she learned from them, from the podcast she listened to, or on her own. A 20-year veteran FBI agent throwing a hissy fit after one shaky interview tells me all I need to know about how they want to handle this. She didn't trust authorities before because of how poorly it says AF, treated her when she went to pick up her kids with a court order in hand. And that's where that ends. As far as Ian's paper goes, whether or not there's more, I haven't seen any. If there are, I will do it. But I think that's kind of all that's been released at this point. So we're going to stop here. Then we are going to pick up on December 9th, where Kay is going to be emailing Detective Moffat, inquiring if they found if JJ's medication had been filled and things like that. Appreciate you hanging out with me. We'll see you soon.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One NA, member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.